Welcome to this explainer. You know, we often think of battles as just being won with superior firepower or overwhelming numbers, but history's greatest strategists knew a really profound truth. Battles are not just won with swords. They are won with the ground beneath your feet and the psychological mastery of the general. Today, we're cracking open Sun Tzu's timeless manual to look at warfare from two entirely different but deeply connected perspectives: the physical earth and the landscape of the human mind.
Today, we'll be covering four key areas: mastering the battleground, the six paths to defeat, the leader's mindset, and finally, the power of desperation. Let's kick things off with Section 1, Mastering the Battleground, where we learn that the Earth itself is a soldier's best ally. Before you even think about your enemy, you've got to understand the physical board you're playing on. Sun Tzu breaks this down into some incredibly practical rules of positioning. Take accessible ground, for instance, where anyone can move freely. The rule here is super simple. Get to the high, sunny spots first and protect your supply lines. Then you have entangling ground. This is basically a trap. It's easy to leave, but incredibly hard to get back to. You really only attack from here if you are absolutely certain the enemy is unprepared, because if they are ready and you fail, it's a total disaster. And third, temporizing ground. This is a stalemate waiting to happen. If neither side gains an advantage by making the first move, Sun Tzu says don't take the bait. Instead, retreat, entice the enemy to come out, and then strike when half their army is exposed. It's a deadly game of chicken where the winner is the one who refuses to play. And this logic totally applies to more extreme environments too. It's all about knowing when to hold your ground and when it's just a terrible idea to fight. Think about narrow passes. They act as strict bottlenecks. If you get there first, fill it with troops and wait. If the enemy beats you to it and guards it fully, stay far away. The exact same logic applies to precipitous heights. Take the high ground and let them exhaust themselves climbing up to you. Never follow an enemy up a mountain. And finally, if you are at a great distance from an equally matched enemy, fighting is actually a major disadvantage for you. You don't have to engage just because an enemy happens to be there. Moving on to Section 2, Six Paths to Defeat, or Calamities Born of Leadership. Pivoting away from the physical ground, we have to face a pretty harsh truth here. The Earth doesn't cause disasters. According to Sun Tzu, catastrophic failures on the battlefield come straight from the general's own faults. Outcomes like flight, insubordination, collapse, ruin, disorganization, and rout, they aren't acts of nature or just bad luck. They are entirely self-inflicted wounds that a leader has to carefully recognize and avoid. For instance, flight is what happens when a leader just foolishly throws their force against an enemy 10 times their size. That's a failure of basic math and judgment, not a defeat by the enemy. It all really comes down to a dangerous lack of balance within the ranks. Picture this. You've got incredibly strong, capable, everyday soldiers, but they're being commanded by weak, ineffective officers. That breeds insubordination. The troops simply won't listen. But flip that around. If the officers are insanely harsh and demanding, but the soldiers are too weak to meet those demands, you trigger a collapse. Extreme strength in one area, paired with extreme weakness in another, will literally tear an organization apart from the inside out. It's like dropping a Ferrari engine into a golf cart. Eventually, something is going to break. Then there are the massive dangers of pure, unchecked emotion. We all know that one manager who sends angry, impulsive emails at 2 a.m., right? Well, in warfare, when higher officers act out of anger and launch rogue attacks purely out of resentment before the commander is even ready, it brings absolute ruin. The entire army gets doomed by a temper tantrum. On the flip side, a rout happens due to a total lack of situational awareness, like sending weak troops right into a powerhouse frontline. It is guaranteed slaughter born of terrible management. Which brings us to Section 3, the leader's mindset, focusing on the careful balance of discipline and care. To avoid those self-inflicted disasters, a leader can't just be some cold, calculating tactician. Sun Tzu hits us with this incredibly profound piece of wisdom. Regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look upon them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand by you even unto death. That imagery is so striking. Deep, parental care creates a bond so powerful that people will face literally anything for you. It's built on devotion, not fear. Treat your team like beloved children, and they're with you all the way. But, and this is a massive, crucial but, if you're kind-hearted, but you can't actually enforce your commands or keep order, Sun Tzu warns that your troops essentially become spoiled children. And in the context of life and death warfare, spoiled children are completely useless for any practical purpose. Empathy is absolutely vital, but it always has to be anchored by strict authority. When you actually nail that perfect balance, something amazing happens. Your force starts acting like the Shuaijian, a mythical snake from the Chong Mountains. This snake has such flawless, seamless unity that if you strike its head, its tail comes around to attack you. Strike the tail, the head strikes back. Sun Tzu points out that even soldiers who are sworn enemies will rescue each other if they're caught in a storm in the same boat. They'll help each other out as naturally as your left hand helps your right. That is the absolute gold standard for organizational unity. Finally, we reach Section 4, the power of desperation, the ultimate psychological checkmate. Here we shift from physical terrain and discipline into Sun Tzu's most extreme psychological tactic, weaponizing the human will to survive. He actually advocates for a radical escalation of deception by the leader, deliberately severing all ties to safety. Step 1 is to mystify your own officers and men. Keep your ultimate plans a total secret. Step 2 is beautifully terrifying. Act like someone who climbs to a great height and then literally kicks the ladder away behind them. And step 3? You burn the boats. You break the cooking pots. You drive your team deep into hostile territory with no clear way home. You are intentionally stripping away any option to retreat. Now, why on earth would a leader do this? Because when you throw people into situations where there is zero chance of escape, they will absolutely prefer death to flight. Sun Tzu acknowledges that on the day this happens, the soldiers might weep. But once they are backed into a corner, placing them on this desperate ground triggers a primal, unstoppable survival instinct. They will fight with an earth-shattering level of courage. The psychology here just fundamentally shifts. When death is the only alternative, people completely lose their sense of fear. With nowhere to run, they stand incredibly firm. Suddenly, the need for micromanagement completely vanishes. The troops will fight fiercely, do exactly what needs to be done without waiting for orders, and remain utterly faithful. By completely removing the safety net, the army naturally achieves maximum focus and unbreakable solidarity. As we wrap up this explainer, we really need to look at the math of victory. Sun Tzu warns us about the trap of the halfway victory. You might know your enemy's weaknesses inside and out. You might know your own team's capabilities perfectly. But guess what? That only covers 2/3 of the equation. If you are ignorant of the ground beneath your feet, the accessible, the entangling, the precipitous terrains we talked about, you are still profoundly vulnerable. It all comes back to this. If you know the enemy and know yourself, your victory will not stand in doubt. If you know heaven and know earth, you may make your victory complete. So, I want to leave you with a question to apply to your own strategic challenges, whether that's in business, a competition, or just life in general. Are you truly aware of your physical and psychological terrain, or are you stepping out onto your battlefield only halfway prepared? Think about it. Thanks for exploring this with us today.